All right. Well, good morning, everybody. Welcome to the webinar. My name is Gloria Hayden. I'm the Public Services Librarian for Southwest, and I'm joined by Whitney Snodgrass, my colleague. She is our Reference and Instruction Librarian. And, we want to thank you all for taking the time to attend our session. We're really excited about working with you on this topic. This is something that, as librarians, is very important to us. Media literacy is important not just to the college, but to society. And we called our webinar Evaluating Information in the News. But we really mean media broadly. So many of the examples that we're going to be looking at come from social media. So we're going to look at all types of media today. So Common Sense Media defines media literacy as the ability to identify different types of media and understand the message that they're sending. And this is a valuable skill to have when you consider how complicated and complex our information environment is. Anybody can create and spread misinformation. So we have a responsibility as media consumers and as citizens to make sure that we're not contributing to that spread of misinformation. And Whitney and I want to say something right up front that we, and a lot of people who teach media literacy, we are really not fans of the term fake news. It has become an unuseful phrase. Originally it was a made-up story that was designed to look like it was from a reputable news source. And it's come to be used in misleading ways. And, we don't want to perpetuate any harmful stereotypes about, the press intentionally selling false information. We feel that journalists, they help us as citizens to make informed decisions. They hold people in power accountable for their actions. And of course, we know that the press is protected by the First Amendment of our Constitution. The founding fathers understood that, a free press is vital to our democracy. So misinformation is a more nuanced and meaningful term. And that's what we're going to be using in this webinar. And we're going to be looking at some, examples of misinformation. So why is media literacy so important? Well, because misinformation is a threat to our democracy. It makes it difficult for us to make informed decisions. It can sow seeds of mistrust in our institutions, and it can incite violence. And being well-informed citizens, that's part of our civic duty. And with this being an election year and, being in the midst of a pandemic, having the skills to navigate this information environment that we live in is really, it's more important than ever. We need these tools to help us overcome information overload and contradictory reports, especially during a time of crisis, like the pandemic. Those contradictory reports are just confusing. They add to the sense of chaos and, stress that I think a lot of us are feeling. So it's important that we're able to sort through the noise and the nonsense and to be able to track down reputable, authoritative information. And then when you add to that algorithms that are used by social media platforms and search engines, it complicates things even more by creating filter bubbles. So with filter bubbles, we are just encountering information and opinions that reinforce our own beliefs. And, this happens when you use a search engine to look up information. If you go on, Facebook and, you like somebody's post or you retweet something. So we end up in information echo chambers. So we're not really getting the perspectives and opinions of other people. And, it's human to want to be right. We want to think that our beliefs are correct. And when you're just surrounded by information that just reinforces your own beliefs, it can keep us sometimes from seeing the bigger picture. It can keep us from correcting our own mistakes. So even though technology's increased misinformation in our environment, it's not a new phenomenon. And politicians being frustrated by media coverage about them isn't anything new. Here in the middle of our slide, we've got a quote from Thomas Jefferson. This is from 1807, and he says, "Nothing can now be believed which is seen in a newspaper. Truth itself becomes suspicious by being put into that polluted vehicle. And, you know, Jefferson was one of our most eloquent defenders of the press. So, and we also have something from 1835. There was a newspaper, a New York newspaper called The Sun, and they published a 6-part series in which they claimed that a famous astronomer had discovered life on the moon. The series described, you know, these lunar forests and oceans, and they talked about winged bat people and unicorns and all kinds of exotic creatures that were supposed to make up life on the moon. And this has come to be known as the Great Moon Hoax. So, and then another famous example. So, you know, let's imagine it's an October night in 1938. You come home from a long, you know, day's work. You flip on the radio. You want to listen to some music, kind of kick back and relax. And here's what you hear. So that could be kind of terrifying. A lot of people tuned in late and they didn't realize that this was a broadcast from based on the H.G. Wells novel War of the Worlds, and it caused panic with some listeners when they thought that we were actually being invaded by aliens. Now, for this webinar, as I mentioned, we're going to be using the term misinformation, but sometimes you'll hear people say disinformation. So, you know, what is the difference? Well, with misinformation, that's information that's false, but not created with the intention of causing harm. Now, disinformation, on the other hand, is information that is false and deliberately created to harm a person, social group, organization, or country. So it's misinformation on purpose. And so disinformation is a subset of misinformation, and the difference lies with the intention of the creator. So we're going to look at 5 types of misinformation, and I'm going to show you some examples from each. We're going to look at fabricated content, manipulated content, imposter content, false context, and satire or parody. Hey, and by the way, if you all want to see any of the resources that Whitney and I have used for this, you know, for our examples and for this presentation, reach out to us, let us know. You know, we're happy to share our PowerPoint with you at the end of the presentation. You'll see our references. We've got links out to those. So if you want to check any of these out, they're available. Just let us know. So on this slide, okay, I've got an example of fabricated content. So with fabricated content, the whole thing is made up and they're just trying to deceive you into thinking that it's real. So this was taken from a Facebook post that appeared on September the 28th. Now keep in mind, that was the day before the first presidential debate. And now my screenshot I've taken from PolitiFact. They're a fact-checking site, and they're paraphrasing. It was a very long Facebook post, and you can go to the PolitiFact site and you can read the original post if you want to. But basically, the post was claiming that Joe Biden had a medical device implanted in his skull so that people could feed him the answers to the debate questions. This claim has been fact-checked and it's proven false. Like I said, if you go to the PolitiFact site, you can access Joe Biden's medical and surgical history. There are tweets from the, it was called Envoy Medical. They're a manufacturer. They make the device that the person was saying had been implanted in Biden's skull. And they said that there isn't, you know, this device isn't capable of any kind of secret wireless, you know, communication. And keep in mind, with a good fact-checking site, they're not just going to say, okay, this is false, you know, have a good day. They're going to lay out the evidence for you. You know, they're going to let you know, they're going to link back to, you know, the evidence, the stories that prove their point. So in this example, we've got manipulated content. So with manipulated content, something's been altered from the original. They may have added or removed something using photo editing software. You got to watch out for things like signs and t-shirts. Those are really easy to manipulate. So this is an example from 2018 when survivors of the Parkland school shooting, they were featured in a video for Teen Vogue. And one of the students, Emma Gonzalez, she rips a gun target in two. But the video, it was manipulated by an outside group and made to look like she was ripping the Constitution in half. And here I've got a tweet. This was from the content officer at Teen Vogue, and he shows the real document on the left and then the photoshopped image on the right-hand side. So in this example, this is imposter content. This type of misinformation, they'll take a well-known, maybe a name, a brand, a logo, and they try to fool you into thinking that it's authentic content. So here we've got what looks like a tweet from Donald Trump from April 2016 saying that then President Obama should wait until he leaves office to pick another justice. If he doesn't, he should be fired. Well, this is not an authentic tweet from President Trump. And you'll notice to the right of his name, you have the check mark. That's supposed to let you know that this is an authentic account, that you can always count on that. This has been debunked by Snopes and the News Literacy Project. They both investigated this. They searched tweet repositories, and there's no record of this tweet. Now here, we've got an example of false context. So this is misinformation that changes the content. It may be an image, a quote. In this case, it was a video, and they put it into a new false context so that it changes the meaning. And in this example, it was a video that started circulating after President Trump was admitted to Walter Reed with COVID-19. And the Post claimed that this video showed a group of bikers outside of the hospital praying for the president. Now, Lead Stories, they're a fact-checking organization. They traced the video back to the original TikTok video, and they discovered that this was actually a protest that took place in South Africa on August the 29th. And then you've got satire. So this is information that uses humor or exaggeration to critique or mock a person, organization, or policy. This example is from Clickhole, and it's an article supposedly about the New York Police Department euthanizing their horses because they suddenly remembered that they had cars. And while that's sort of silly, keep in mind, sometimes people will claim that they were kidding as a defense for, sharing or creating misinformation. And in fact, with that example that we were seeing earlier of the Parkland student, the group that had posted that manipulated video, they claimed that they thought it was pretty obvious that that was satire or a parody. So, and with that, I'm gonna turn things over to Whitney.
Okay, thank you, Gloria. So we've seen various types of misinformation that exist on the internet and in print news. So I'm going to talk about how to identify that misinformation, how to pick out if something is reliable or if it's probably not true. So I'll just state from the beginning that I'm going to show lots of tips and tricks and techniques and everything, but there's no set way to 100% determine if something is true or false, partially because you can't really know 100% unless you, know the original source, but it's hard to tell what's 100% true online. And there's a lot of personal judgment involved. It's very intuitive. So a lot of it does kind of revolve around you just kind of using your best judgment. Okay, do I think this is reliable or do I think this is probably phony? And additionally, different situations will just call for different criteria. So you may use some of what I'm about to show you, but you may not use all of it in different situations. But I'll at least provide a good basis to start with for identifying misinformation in the media. Or can you put the next slide for me? So a base test to start with is called the CRAAP test. And this was generated by the Merriam Library at California State University. And they designed this just as a general method for evaluating information just in general. So you could use this test for maybe finding like a research article for a research paper. I've actually done that before, but this is just as good for evaluating information in the news. So in this case, CRAAP stands for currency, relevance, authority, accuracy, and purpose. And these are just kind of 5 elements that you check for if you see a post or an article and you think, I'm not so sure about that. So the easiest thing to check is currency. And it's as simple as just checking the date. When was this published? When was this posted? Because so many times we see something online that kind of makes us raise an eyebrow, and then we check the date and see, oh, this was shared on April 1st, or, oh, this was published 12 years ago. This isn't even relevant anymore. So many people miss that, though. A lot of people will automatically just see a headline, click and share before they even take a second to check the date. So it's the easiest step. Go ahead and get it out of the way. Make sure you're checking to see if something is outdated before you share it. Next is relevance. And this means the importance of the information for your needs. So this kind of does come more into play if you're looking for like a research article. Of course, you need something academic for your purposes, but for evaluating information in the news, it's also important to think about who is this information relevant for? Who is the intended audience? Is it written for just anybody to read, or is it maybe tailored for a specific demographic or a specific group of people who think a certain way? And that really helps us with determining the purpose of whatever's been written a little bit later down the line. Then you want to check for the authority. And this just means the source of the information. So this is a good chance to, we'll get into lateral searching later, but this is a good chance to kind of do a little digging and figure out, okay, what do I know about who created this content? Do I know anything about the writer? Are they an expert on this topic? Can I trust what they say? What about the news outlet? Do I know if they're credible or not? And so you want to make sure that whoever is producing this content is actually an authoritative source for this content. Then you want to check for accuracy, which is just the reliability, truthfulness, and correctness of the content. So this means looking for evidence. If I see an article that's breaking news and it says that, oh, so-and-so random bystander on the street said such and such, it might be true, but I have no way to know that. I can't follow up with that if they don't tell me where they got their facts. However, if I see an article saying, hey, we have all this data on this recent issue from the Pew Research Center, I can probably trust that a little bit more than something from a nameless bystander. So accuracy, if it's followed up, if it's supported by hard evidence, is going to be a lot more reliable. Okay, then the purpose. Now this is the part where it takes a lot of intuition on your part, because no one's going to outright state their purpose when they create something to post online. Some might, but most of the times it's not very obvious. So the purpose is the reason the information exists. And this kind of takes some judgment. Sometimes you have to read through an entire article to try to figure out and puzzle for yourself, okay, why was this written? Was it meant to actually inform in a non-biased manner, or was it just meant to sell a product, or was it meant to persuade, or was it maybe meant just to get an emotional reaction? Okay, next slide, please. So some really great questions to ask while doing the CRAAP test. Does this title or article or post, does it cause me to have an emotional reaction? And is that its intended purpose? If I read a clickbait headline and it kind of makes me a little gristled, I have to wonder, okay, was this written specifically for the intent of making someone who thinks the way that I do mad, just to get me to click on it and just to get them more views? Because that is a major tactic that lots of people will use. They'll make an article that's meant just to grab your attention, maybe make you mad, just to get you to click on it. So it's really hard to check your emotions in a situation like that, but it's very important to just kind of be aware of, okay, maybe something is purposely trying to get an emotional reaction out of me. What can I learn about who created this content? Is the author a qualified expert? Do some digging, search the author, and actually Google them and see, okay, if this person wrote a article about breeds of snakes, but I search them up and find out that they have no zoological background, I'm not really going to trust what they say about snakes. Does the website offer any insight into how they create their content and keep it factual? Some websites will do this. Some genuine news outlets will have like an about section, or maybe where they talk about their process or their purpose. And they'll explain, okay, this is how we do our best to do our research, pick our stories, produce factual content. And to an extent, you can only believe that so much because anybody could put anything into their about section. But if they have one, then they are being upfront about it, and they are attempting to at least try to convey how they're trying to produce factual news. Can I easily find evidence to support the content? Does the source readily offer a way for me to see where they found their facts? If I read an article and it doesn't even tell me where they got their facts, I have no way of trusting it. I have no way of knowing if it's actually true or if it's false. And I have no way of knowing if they're trying to hide something, if they don't want me to know where they got their information. But it's kind of like math. If you see a post and they're willing to show their work, it's a little bit more trustworthy because at least you know where they got their facts. Okay, next slide. Okay, some warning signs to look out for. If you read something online and it has sloppy or grammatically incorrect writing, even if it looks like an article that was published by what looks like a reputable news source, if you see that there's a lot of just messy writing in it, chances are it was not written by an actual professional. Also, look out for websites with any added elements in the domain name, like .com, .co at the end of it. I actually know of a website about like this offhand. It's called like abc.com.co. And it's imposter content because it's intentionally trying to mislead you as the media consumer into thinking that you've found your way to ABC's actual website. And they're hoping that you won't realize whatever they post is not actually legitimate. And then the last thing is, we talked about this earlier, lack of sources quoted or lack of easily traceable sources. If they're not making it easy for you to find where they got their facts, then you have no idea what they're trying to convince you of or what they're trying to fool you with. Okay, next slide, Gloria. All right, so now I'm going to turn it back over to Gloria, and she'll share more with us about lateral searching and reverse image searching and how this helps us to identify misinformation more.
Yes, so these are two really good tools to have in your fact-checking arsenal. You can do a lateral search. This is really easy. All it is, you're just going to open a new window on your computer, go to a search engine that you feel comfortable using, and you're just going to run a search on the claim. If you're investigating a person, a story. Now, if it's an image that you're focusing on, you can do a reverse image search. There are tools that make it pretty easy. There's one called 10i. There's also, if you search Google Images, and I'm going to show you some examples of how to do this, you can upload a photo if you're on a website and you see something, or you're on social media, you can right click and run a search on the image and get information about it. So let's actually, I want to show you an example. This was something that somebody sent to me, and they knew I was looking for some examples for this class, and they said, could this be right? Is this true? This was a tweet, and we can see an image here of mail bins sitting on the side of the road. And it says, boy, oh boy, they're finding thrown away Trump ballots everywhere now. California, Texas, and Pennsylvania. How does the USPO explain this? So I took some screenshots as I went through this. Like Whitney was saying, there's no, one way to do this. But I just wanted to kind of show you how you could approach this and how I did it. So see what I have in bold there, or in highlight, what I highlighted that. I decided just to run a lateral search. So let me show you. So I just went into Google. I put it in just as it was in the tweet. You know, I put quotation marks around it so that it would search for it as a phrase. I know that ballots is misspelled, but I kept it that way. And I know there's a grammatical error, but I wanted to search for it just as it was in the tweet. So I ran my search. And when you do this lateral searching, you know, look through your results, take your time. I see the first one. It says that photo of discarded Trump ballots fake. Now, this is from something called OregonLive.com. I looked at the little blurb, and it does have our language that we pulled out of the tweet. So, you know, it looks like maybe that's what they're talking about. But you know something? I don't know anything about Oregon Live. They may be a perfectly reputable site. I don't know. I'm just not familiar with them. Now, I could have done a lateral search on them. I could have just opened up a new window. I could have run a search to get some information on them to see if they're reliable, but I kept looking through my results. And I noticed the second one down, it says photo shows mail from 2018, not discarded Trump ballots. And they have my language from the tweet. And I see that this is from the AP, the Associated Press. Now, them I know, you know, that's a reputable, a standards-based news outlet. And keep that in mind, you know, journalists, they follow a set of professional standards when it comes to their news coverage. You know, their reputation rides on getting the story right. So I thought, well, you know, I want to see what the AP is saying about this. So let me take you to, so here is a screenshot of the story that I pulled up. So this was on September the 28th. And the claim was that a photo of mail bins and envelopes on the side of the road shows discarded Trump ballots found in states such as California, Texas, and Pennsylvania. And then the AP's assessment, it says this is false. It says the photo does not show ballots with votes for President Donald Trump. It shows mail bins and envelopes abandoned by a mail carrier in New Jersey who quit in 2018. Well, you know, again, I want to know, why are they saying this? And I looked through the article, and they told how they went about debunking this. They did a reverse image search. So I thought, well, that's what I'm going to do next. But they also linked out to an AP article that they ran back in October of 2018, where they talked about this incident of a mail carrier in New Jersey quitting their job and leaving the mail on the side of the road. They also linked out to a local news outlet story from that time. So, like I said, I wanted to run my own reverse image search. So what you can do, when you've got the image in front of you, you can simply right click and you're going to get a window. Like, I don't know, it's kind of hard to see my screenshot, but it gives you different options for searching. If you want, you can copy or download the image. You can click and save the image's address or URL, or I was using Chrome, for example, and with Chrome, it'll let you go ahead and just search Google for the image. And most browsers have an option like this. So that's one way. I could have just clicked, you know, search Google. I could also go to images.google.com. And I don't know if you can see the camera icon. You click that, and then it gives you a screen where you can either put in the URL or you can upload your image and do a search that way. And then one more tool is 10i. This is just a reverse image search tool. And by the way, this is linked out on the library's webpage, and Whitney's going to be showing you this here in a few minutes. So I uploaded my image to Google. I can see the thumbnail of it. And then I started looking through my results. You know, I want to see what's coming up. And the first one, it looks like it's from YouTube. It says postal worker caught dumping mail into trash. And then it says a cell phone video shows a postal worker dumping mail into a dumpster. Well, that didn't quite sound right. So, you know, I kept looking. I looked at the second one, but then I noticed just under that, I don't know if you could see in gray, it says pages that include matching images. So I wanted to take a look at that. And the first item that comes up, the title says postal worker quits, dumps hundreds of letters on side of, and I noticed that this is from Newsweek. So I know Newsweek, you know, that's a reputable source. So I went to the news link, to the Newsweek article. I can see that this was published October the 4th of 2018. I see my image there that I ran my search on. And I started reading through what they had to say, and they are talking about this incident where a mail carrier had quit their job. They do mention the name of a special agent from the post office who talked with, it looks like it was a local publication called the Courier Post. So I went back to my results, and there was a link out to the Courier Post's article. I see here we've got our image, and it did, you know, confirm what they were saying in the Newsweek article. And if you'll notice, this was actually published on October the 2nd, which was 2 days before the Newsweek article. And they're discussing this incident that happened. So by this point, you know, I felt pretty confident that what I was looking at, you know, with the tweet, that was actually false context. They were taking a photo, but they were putting it in a new context. So, you know, I want you to play around with these tools. You know, it can take a little practice. Sometimes some searches are easier than others. By the way, I showed my mom how to do this. She's 78. She's loving this. She's turning into a fact-checking machine. she feels very empowered by this. She's coming to me every other day saying, you know what your cousin posted on Facebook, and I just did a search on that. And so yeah, I hope that this will make you feel empowered, just like it is my mom. So that said, let me turn it over to Whitney.
Okay, so now we've seen lots of different tools for how to identify misinformation. So now what I want to get into is now that you've figured out that something probably isn't reliable, let's look into how to fact check or how to debunk. And probably the simplest way to do that, and kind of a good rule of thumb, is to check multiple sources. So if you see something online or you see a headline that kind of catches your attention and you think, oh, I'm not so sure about that, check other news outlets. If you find like a breaking news story or something, check other news outlets and see if they're all telling the same story and see if their facts are lining up. Because again, generally, if a story is factual, more likely than not, you'll have multiple news outlets, regardless of perspective, sharing the same story, and their facts will probably line up. Now, breaking news is a little bit different because lots of news outlets are going to be covering breaking news, but maybe their stories won't line up just yet. Well, that's because stuff is still happening. Events are still unfolding, and there hasn't been time for everyone to get the facts straight. So breaking news is not necessarily something to take at face value, but if it's not breaking, generally, the more news outlets you have telling the same story, the more likely it is that the story is factual. Okay, so the next tool is to use a fact-checking website. And here in a second, I'll kind of show you a few of those, some of my favorites. And I'll also take you into some library resources that we have. Using a fact-checking website is an excellent resource, but also using your library is an excellent resource because we as librarians are trained in fact-checking and finding and locating and recognizing credible information. That's not just for research papers. And I'll show you in our website, we have lots of really great resources in there too. So let me do a screen share and I will take you to my browser where I have pulled up PolitiFact. So let me do this. All right, so I want to show you the first fact-checking website that I've used this one before. I really like this one. This is called PolitiFact, and it's just at politifact.com. And we've got links in the end of the presentation, and these are all linked in our library website, and I'll show you how to find those here later. But this is a fact-checking website that focuses on politicians or political claims. So this is a section where they've done a whole story, just kind of compiling all their fact checks on COVID-19. We have some recent fact checks that pop up, and you see here they use what they call a truthometer. And so they'll tell you if something is outright false or true, or if it's just not true at all, they'll say pants on fire. But let me see if I can find an example here. Because sometimes you'll see one. Okay, here's one. This one is mostly false. So if I click on this one, and if I scroll down, it'll explain to me. They show their work and they tell me, okay, this might be factually true, but maybe this is taken out of context. And they'll explain to me how it's mostly false, and they'll explain all of their research. They'll lay it out for me. They'll link where they got their information from. And if you scroll all the way down to the bottom, they show their sources, and it's linked so that you can go straight to the source and see where they got their information. And this is a really cool website because there's different ways you can browse. Oh, excuse me. You can browse by state, you can check major issues, you can check specific people, and here we've got a lot of popular politicians listed here. You can check by truth-o-meter ratings, so if you just want to read lots of half-truths, there they are. They've got one specifically for Trump, they've got one specifically for Obama, there's one for the elections, and then over here, under the About Us section, they have their process. And any good fact-checking website is going to show this to you because they want you to know up front how they maintain their status of being as unbiased as they can be and as nonpartisan as they're able to be. Now, it's impossible to be completely non-biased because we're people. We all have our own individual biases, but they'll talk about how they started, their partnership websites, how they choose claims to fact check, how they do their research, how they correct mistakes. And so they show their work. They want you to know everything about their process, about how they try to make sure that you're hearing the truth. Okay, so the next one I want to show is called Snopes. And this one is not limited to just political claims. So obviously right now with an election in a few weeks, we've got a lot of politics right there at the front. But they do also do a lot of urban myths, which I think is really funny. Okay, so here we go. We've got one that's not just political. And the great thing about Snopes is that if you see something online that you're not sure about, you can submit a topic. And lots of fact checker websites will have this, where if you see something that you haven't seen debunked yet, you can submit it to them and they'll put their professional fact checkers on it. And then the next one is called factcheck.org. And so here at the front, we've got fact checking the VP debate. And I like this one because it has lots of different subtopics on the side. So they've got one just for coronavirus. They have a partnership with Facebook where they'll debunk false posts on Facebook. They've got one on fact checking the healthcare debate, misleading political talking points. They've even got a sister site for political literacy called Fact Check. So they have a ton of stuff in here. And then if I scroll back up to the top, up here under About Us, I see that little link where they talk about their process. And so they tell you right there up front, they show their work. They want to make sure that you know as a consumer how they're trying to stay non-biased. So I love fact-checking websites. Those are an excellent place to start, but you don't just have to stop there. There's lots of good resources elsewhere, and we've tried to compile as many as we could here on our website. So our library website is really easy to get to. It's just southwest.tn.edu/library. And if you scroll down to the middle of the page, you see this gray search bar area, and this is where all of our searches are. But I'm going to click on databases. And this page is organized by category. So we have a whole category called current events. And this is where we have all of our best resources. So we have some databases that we subscribe to. We have all of our recommended websites. So pretty much anything that we're showing in this webinar, you can find a link to here under recommended websites. And we even have a video. So for the databases that we subscribe to, we've got a Canadian one. But if we're just looking for stuff here in America, we've got issues and controversies, opposing viewpoints, and points of view. So let me show you what one of these will look like. And these are excellent because, oh, see, I'm off campus. I need to log in. But these are great because if you want to have a chance to research something and do it in a non-biased manner or just sort of get the whole story, this is a great way to do it because they'll show you the popular topics, but they'll show you all the arguments side by side. Okay, here we are. So Issues and Controversies is hosted by Facts on File. And here at the top, you see some recent popular ones, like there we go, we got coronavirus there at the beginning. But this is nice because I can browse by topic. So I don't know, let's say if I want to learn more about birth control. That's a hotly debated issue. And here I have a nice issue overview. I can click on that and it'll expand it for me and give me a video so I can just learn more about the topic in general. But then I get different articles where it breaks it down into sort of like sub-issues. So birth control and state abortion laws, or birth control and women's rights and sexual harassments. And down you see each side, it has supporters argue and opponents argue. And these are nice little overviews. But I'm gonna click this one about birth control and Planned Parenthood. So I can click this article. And I get a ton of information in this database. So I get my introduction, I get the sort of the outlines of what supporters argue versus opponents. And then over here on this full article, I can see what's in here. So I've got a background and I've got a conclusion. I've got a by the numbers where it'll show me some statistics, even editorial cartoons that people have made about birth control and Planned Parenthood. I've got discussion questions, and then here I've got my bibliography where they show their work, which I can't stress that enough. I love it when an article shows their work, because there it is. I can click those links and I can follow up with this super easily. But that's not enough. I want to see some primary sources. So here I've got some legal documents here. I've got a primary source document. I've got all this primary source stuff about Planned Parenthood and birth control. So I can go straight to the source on this. There's another one for court cases if I want to read up on this, and it doesn't take me long to get to Roe versus Wade. I also have videos that I can watch on the topic if I want to do more research. And then, oh, I love it when they have this one, infographics. I'm such a nerd for this. I love it when there's charts and data, but I can see where they got their data, and they have data visualization. They have charts for it just so it's a little more easily consumable. And then I can check editorials and news, so I can see what's been published about this in newspapers, or not just newspapers, but just news outlets recently. So this database is just excellent for getting the whole story. So if you feel like you're just only getting one side of a story, or only just one perspective of a major issue, or if you're just stuck in like a filter bubble on your Facebook, and we'll talk about that later, this is a great place to come to get the whole story and get different perspectives. Now, this is one of the databases that we subscribe to. But if you want something similar that you don't need a database for, there's a website called ProCon, and it functions very similarly. And this is open access to anybody. You see right there at the top, it advertises nonpartisan. I love that. And it works the same way in that you've got a lot of popular topics that you can browse, and they've got recent stuff. So even like cancel culture, that happened only just this year, and it's already there. So I'm going to click on Electoral College. I want to learn more about that. Hey, have it. Stop. And right there, I've got this lovely data visualization where it shows me how many electoral votes are in each state. And right down here, it shows me where it got its information. So if I scroll down more, I get this overview about the Electoral College. ProCon is really nice because it lines up a point and a counterpoint right next to each other. So here I've got an opinion about the Founding Fathers. And then this one talks about representing different parts of the country. And then if I scroll all the way to the bottom, I get some discussion questions, but then they have their sources. They have all their citations. So if I want to follow up on this and figure out where they got their facts, it is super easy for me to find it. Okay, so let's take a look at, okay, we looked at fact check, we saw PolitiFact, we saw Snopes. TinEye is down here, and Gloria showed a little bit of this. This is our reverse image search. So if you have an image that you want to do some research on, you can upload, paste, or you can even enter an image URL here, and it'll do a search for you for a picture. And let me show you News Literacy Project. Gloria and I use this one so much making this webinar. We love News Literacy Project. This has lots of resources for news literacy or media literacy for someone who wants to teach about it, but they have really good stuff in here for just everyone. So they have online classrooms, and it's actually called Checkology. So if you wanna have another class, something like this on their platform, they have classes that you can sign up for. They have a newsletter called The Sift, where they show popular fact checks that they've done recently. They have an app called Informable, where it has little quizzes. They'll show you a headline and you can pick, is this news or is this just an opinion piece? And then they have a podcast called Is That a Fact? And lots of tips and tools. They have lots of little graphics and quick facts and even quizzes that you can take on whether something is reliable or not. So just a lot of really great resources on this website and a good chance to dig deeper into this. Okay, then the last thing I want to show, if any of these are giving you any trouble or if you're just struggling to navigate through our database, we've got a lovely video here called Researching Controversial Topics that our friend Gloria here recorded for us. And this is on our library YouTube channel. And so this video, she'll walk you through all those different resources and show you how you can navigate them the best of your ability. Okay, so that is all I have to share from my screen. So let me stop sharing. And let me see if I can just get back into sharing the PowerPoint. I don't know if I have it open. Gloria, can you try to share the PowerPoint again?
Yeah, let's see here. Well,
bear with us. Okay, so another really important element of news literacy is being able to confront bias. Now, there's been a lot going around lately about bias in the news and maybe saying like this newspaper or this channel leans more one way than the other politically. And that's possible. It's very possible that you could have a reputable news source that is a little biased one direction or the other. But I more want to talk about how we recognize bias within ourselves while consuming media, because we can't really control what happens in a news outlet. And if it's a reputable, genuine news outlet, chances are they're trying not to be biased. They're trying to actually inform. But for our own bias, how do we do that? How do we become aware of what biases we have inside of ourselves? So the first part I would say is to become aware of your own confirmation bias. So confirmation bias is the tendency to interpret new evidence as confirmation of one's existing beliefs or theories. So this would be like if I see a post on Facebook that I agree with, and if I'm more likely to believe it than if I saw something that I disagreed with. So it's important to ask ourselves those tough questions. Like if I'm fact checking, am I only fact checking what I disagree with, or am I fact checking things that I already agree with, just to make sure that my beliefs and my theories are founded in truth? Am I only looking for information that just confirms what I already believe? And it's very dangerous to do that. It's very dangerous to only accept as truth something that we already agree with, because it's possible that what we agree with might not be true. And it's possible that if we see something we disagree with and we fact check it and find out it's true, maybe that's a little harder for us to swallow. Just to accept that, oh, that is true, I guess. So we kind of need to just push ourselves to accept something that we might disagree with. If it's fact checked, if it's known to be true, we may just need to push ourselves to say, okay, well, I didn't see it that way before. And then also we've got to become aware of our filter bubbles. So this is like what Gloria was talking about, where you may have like a social media news feed that's tailored and programmed with an algorithm to show you what it thinks you want to see. And that's great if you want to see more cat videos. That's just fine. But if it shows you, let's say you have more of a liberal or conservative view of politics, and you're only seeing in your social media feed, you're only seeing one side, that becomes really dangerous if you're shaping and forming your political opinions and your ideas on the world just based on an algorithm that's just trying to show you what it thinks you want to see. That can severely cripple someone when it comes to actually trying to form an opinion, a fact-based opinion about the world. So it's important to try to push past that. It's important to try to get out of any filter bubbles we might be stuck in, because it can just become an echo chamber where you're just hearing the same things over and over again that you already agree with, and it's not broadening your perspective. So it's important to try to push past it, and it's important to recognize when your thoughts and opinions have already been shaped by a filter bubble. So what do we do? How do we get past this? How do we confront the bias that we might already be steeped in? Well, we can actively look for stories outside our filter bubbles. Most people my age or younger, we get our news just from social media, from Facebook or Instagram or TikTok or whatever. So it's important for us to get out, maybe subscribe to a newspaper, subscribe to 5 newspapers that come from different sources, just to make sure that you're covering your bases and that you're getting the entire perspective, and just get out of the filter bubble. But it's also important to try to get past our confirmation bias, because it's so important to just, if you see something that you think might not be true, it's important to recognize if that's only because you disagree with it or not. So intentionally seek and recognize truth, no matter where it comes from, whether you expected it or not. It's so important these days just to be open-minded about what could be true, and to not let our emotions get us tied up in that. Okay, so Gloria, I'm going to see if I can take control of the PowerPoint real quick. For the practice activity, let's see. So I'm going to show you some examples of headlines or posts or news articles. I'm going to show you some examples of some media. And this is by no means a quiz. I'm not going to grade you on this, but this is just kind of to give you a chance to kind of stretch your misinformation muscles, I suppose. So I will give you a chance to, and it'll be multiple choice. I'll give you some options to pick from, but take a look at it and just off of your best judgment, guess what you think this headline would be. Okay, so the first one I have, this is a picture that's gone around the internet of some protest signs having to do with COVID-19. So I want you to take a close look at this picture and determine if you think, and I'm just gonna, and let's see, I think there's that raise hand mechanic. So I'll tell you an option and you just raise your hand to vote for whichever one you think it is. Okay, so who thinks this is manipulated content? That would mean that it's something that's been edited.
Whitney,
Yes?
we can't see what you're doing. It says can't display content.
Can't display content. All right, let me stop presenting and hand it back over to Gloria then. It might not have liked me trying to take over it.
Okay.
Sorry about that, you guys.
How about you?
Apologies.
Here we go.
Oh, we're gonna have to scroll through all of it again. This PowerPoint has enjoyed giving us a hard time.
Yeah, it really has. Okay, here we go.
Okay, can everybody see that?
Yes.
Okay, great. Okay, so here we've got these protest signs. All right, raise your hand if you think this is edited or manipulated content. All right. Now, raise your hand if you think this is imposter content, trying to use someone's name or like a reputable brand.
Mm.
All right. What about satire? Who thinks this is just kind of like a parody commentary? All right. Okay, raise your hand if you think this is not misinformation. All right. Okay. Let me show you what it. Let's see what it actually is. Gloria, take it to the next slide. This is manipulated content. These protest signs have been edited to show different opinions, that someone wanted to make it look like they all just were okay with having the virus, but that's not the case. So protest signs, posters, T-shirts, anything that has a blank background, those are extremely easy to edit. So those are things to look out for and watch out for. Okay, next slide, Gloria. Okay, if you've got your hands raised, go ahead and take them down right now. So here we have a Facebook post that says AARP endorses Biden and gives financial support to Planned Parenthood. Your member dollars are used for this support. All right, who thinks this is satire? Not much, okay. Who thinks it's fabricated content? Fabricated would mean that it was just completely made up. Okay, got a few more votes there, yeah. Okay, who thinks it's imposter content? Less votes, okay, yeah. Who thinks it's not misinformation? Okay, all right. Okay, Gloria, show us the correct answer. It's fabricated. This was generated by a user on Facebook. This was just someone who is on Facebook who just made a post and just used a background and did not provide any evidence to support this claim. And this actually has been fact-checked. This has been debunked by, I believe it was PolitiFact that went through and double-checked this. Okay, next slide. Okay, now we have a viral image. This picture had kind of circulated the internet, and at the bottom it says same paper, same dates, different markets. What did you just learn? Feeling manipulated yet? And the person who shared this was showing these two papers and stated that they were being sold in different regions where there were different voting blocks, and it was being used to manipulate the voter. So we've got one that says Trump softens his tone and the other that says Trump talks tough on wall. Okay, so who thinks this is imposter content? Okay, not much. All right, how about manipulated content? Couple of votes, all right. All right. Who thinks it's false context? Which would just be like a picture that was shared with a different context to change the meaning. Yeah, we got some more there. Yeah. Okay. How about not misinformation? Not so many. Okay, all right. Gloria, show us what's the real answer? It's false context. So this was fact checked, and if you zoom in and look at the newspapers, they have different amounts of stars in the corner, and this is apparently a way that this newspaper, that the Wall Street Journal, would mark different versions of their paper that had been published at different times of the day. So this was different versions that had been published as the story was developing. So it's not the same issue that was being published in different regions to different voters. Okay, next slide. Okay, now we have a photo that was going around the internet of a debate between Nixon and Kennedy. And if you look in the middle, you see a little line that shows that it's different shots of them. And one of them, it says Los Angeles, and the other, it says New York. So this was being shared as sort of a basis to say that Richard Nixon and John F. Kennedy had a virtual debate in 1960. Okay, so raise your hand if you think this is satire. Okay, all right. What about manipulated content? All right. Okay, cool. How about imposter content? Okay. Raise your hand if you think this is not misinformation. Okay, all right. Gloria, this is not misinformation. This was checked. There is a clip from the New Jersey, oh, I can't, let me see. The Record, New Jersey's The Record. This is a newspaper that did actually announce Nixon and Kennedy did have a virtual debate on October 13th, 1960. This was fact-checked by Snopes. Okay, next slide. Okay, now we have a Twitter post of a screenshot of an email that has the names Trump, Pence at the top. It's got their logo. And in this email, it is a fundraising email asking for a donation to help President Trump recover from COVID-19. All right, so who thinks this is imposter content? Okay. All right. How about satire? All right. What about false context? Okay. How about not misinformation? Okay. Gloria, show the next one. This is imposter content. This email was generated by this user, and they falsely used the logo of the president and the VP to use their name to make it look authoritative. Okay, last one, Gloria. Okay, now we have a news article that says Cuomo says Florida beachgoers traveling to New York must first be tested for IQ. All right, who thinks this is false context? All right, who thinks this is satire? Oh, we had a little jump there, yeah. Okay, how about manipulated content? All right, how about not misinformation? All right, Gloria, next slide. This is satire. It's written by Andy Borowitz, and this is a column called the Borowitz Report, which is a popular producer of satire news. And you'll notice at the top, lots of satire producers have started doing this lately, where they'll blatantly say, oh, someone is not muted. Could everybody make sure that their mics are muted right now? Thank you so much. Lots of satire producers nowadays will blatantly state at the top, this is satire, this is not news. Because not everybody quite can catch that sometimes. Sometimes you'll see that someone shares a satirical article, not realizing that it's not actually news. Okay, next slide. Okay, so I know we're a little bit over time. We're going to hurry up and have some time, a little bit of time for questions at the end. So the biggest thing that Gloria and I want you guys to take away from this is how to stop misinformation from spreading, because as we've seen, there is a lot of misinformation out there, and it's really easy to make misinformation, and it's even easier to share misinformation. So how can we stem the tide? How can we prevent that from happening? Well, first, you can fact check before you react, before you get upset at something, or before you take it as face value as the truth. Just do a little fact check, run it past a fact checking website, use the CRAAP test, go through all the steps, check it, and just try to see if it's truthful or not. Then pause before you share. It's so easy to see something that we either like or don't like, and then just click share. But before you contribute more of misinformation to the internet, just take a pause. Just think about it and contemplate before you share it. Is this actually going to help, or is this actually going to hurt? And then last, look for news and stories from multiple sources and perspectives to get a whole picture. Make sure that you're not just hearing one side of the story. Make sure that you're not just stuck in a filter bubble or an echo chamber, or that you're just hearing things that you already agree with. Actively go out and look for different sources of news that you can believe would be reputable. Now, these are all such important steps to take because not only will these make you as individuals more well-rounded consumers of media, but they'll also make you more well-rounded producers of media, because the internet is so huge and there's so much misinformation out there. So it's a massive amount of false information. But whatever we can do, even in our small little corner of the internet, even if you only have 10 followers, if you share information that you know to be true, you never know who's going to see it. You never know how far it will go. And even the smallest difference like that can make a change. Okay, so I hope everybody learned something today. I hope you feel a little bit more confident about tackling the news and media today. I hope you feel a little bit more equipped to scroll through even your Facebook news feed now. And I hope this makes a difference for everybody. And I hope this just gives us a little bit more confidence and peace of mind going into such a chaotic year. Okay, so I know we're over time. Gloria and I will gladly stay to answer any questions that anybody has. Again, reach out to us if you want access to this PowerPoint, or if you just want to see our sources or our list of resources at the end. We will gladly share this with anyone who wants it. If you came in late, we also will have a recording that we will share to our YouTube channel just as soon as we can. But thank you all so much for being here and for joining us today. And we really appreciate the interest in this topic. We felt like it was so relevant. We were so excited to get to share this skill with everybody. So thank you so much for being here. Okay, so I'll tell you what, if anybody has a question that they want to stick around for, either you can just grab the mic or you can raise your hand, or if you have somewhere else to be and you want to take off, that is more than fine too.
I think that somebody has their hand up.
Oh, yes.
Would you like to just unmute yourself and ask your question?
Yes, I came late and I probably missed the part, the purpose of this meeting.
The purpose, we wanted to share how to become more media literate. So we wanted to share how to spot false information or misinformation in the news or even in social media, just because we feel like being able to find the truth, especially right now in such chaotic times, we felt like this is a very good skill to have, of being able to figure out if something is true or false online.
Okay, really appreciate that.
Thank you. We appreciate everyone being here. You might hear my cat. Yes, shush.
Well,
any other questions or comments?
Will you send the link of the YouTube to every in the student mailbox?
We'll see if we can get a list of everyone who's at least been in this webinar, and we'll try to follow up with a link. But if not, our YouTube channel is really easy to get to on our library website.
Would you like me to show it?
Yeah, go ahead and show it. Kitty,
Yeah.
get down.
Oh, let's see. Let me just pull up the library site. And are you all seeing my screen?
Yes.
All right. So I'm just scrolling. So this is the library's homepage, and I am just scrolling down. And if you go right here, you'll see a link to our YouTube channel. If you click on that, we have all kinds of videos on here that you can access, 24/7. We cover all different topics, but we'll be sure to include this video right here.
And I think we should have it up at least within the week, so it should be up pretty quickly.
And let's see, so someone was posting, they said, wonderful information. I would suggest that even reputable news agencies can be biased since all people carry bias. So how do we know their biases? It says, I would suggest 2 ideas. Being aware of how often an agency is called out and has to retract a story. Also, are they balanced in giving positive and negative stories on someone? No one is good or all bad. Very true. Yes. And keep in mind when you're looking at news agencies, when it comes to straight news coverage, how are they doing on that? Sometimes I think people see maybe opinion pieces and think, oh, well, they're biased to the right or they're biased to the left. And yes, yeah, you're right. I mean, nobody is perfect. And yes, a reputable source will, if they have made a mistake, they will come out and let you know that. They'll issue retractions and corrections. So yeah, those are things to keep in mind. But do keep in mind sometimes when it comes to the opinion pieces, you're trying to persuade somebody in that instance. So think about, when you're looking at sites, are they just giving you the straight news or is it actually an opinion piece? But yeah, you're right. Those are good things to keep in mind. And thank you for that. That's a wonderful comment. Whitney, do you have anything to add?
I would just say, yeah, check just using that lateral searching to just Google about that news, or not necessarily Google, but just search about that news outlet and see, okay, how many times have they gotten called out? How many times have fact checkers debunked their material? That's a very good indicator of how much they're actually trying to share the truth. And yeah, it is impossible to completely be non-biased, and that's why you have in fact-checking websites, you have so many people working together to try to counter each other's biases and try to be aware of each other's biases. And the best thing we can do for that, I think, is just be aware of our own. But even just being aware of a news outlet's bias, if you can detect it, if it's there, if you've used your judgment, if you've determined, okay, they're clearly biased in this direction, just being aware of it on your end can do a lot in just recognizing what they say. But yeah, absolutely correct. Yeah, there are reputable news outlets that can carry bias, and sometimes it's because they are in an area where they know everyone in that area has that same bias, and they think it'll sell. They think they can make money that way. So it's sometimes very blatant in some cases. But yeah, I would just say just lateral searching to make sure you're aware of it. Sometimes on CNN, they don't put their opinions on the opinion tab. Yeah, sometimes you do get reputable news outlets trying to share opinion as fact. That, I think we had like a subcategory for that called misleading content, where someone shares something that is just opinion, but they're passing it off as, oh, this is true, this is factual. And it's another thing to look out for. Yeah, it's a thing to be very watchful for.
Yeah, so think about all of these tips, as you're reading news stories and when you're looking at something, let the things that we've discussed kind of go through your mind. Think about the CRAAP test and ask yourself some of those questions.
And again, like we said, it really just comes down to your best judgment. It really just comes down to what you decide for yourself you can trust or not. And it may be true, it may be false, it might be, but I mean, and in this case, we honestly just have to do the best that we can.
Anybody else? Well, thank you all so much for attending. We really appreciate it. And, if there's anything that we can do to assist, hey, don't forget, you can always go to the library's webpage if you all need any help with anything. There's an Ask a Librarian link. I was showing you where the YouTube channel is, but just to the left of that, there's a link that says Ask a Librarian. If you click that, it shows you all the ways that you can contact us. So, if there's anything that you need, reach out to us. Let us know. That's why we're here.
And that chat is manned every day. So even though our physical locations might not be fully open yet, that ref chat has someone on standby, I think every day but Sunday. So that is the best way to get in touch with us. And I put our email addresses in earlier. I'll just retype them in case anyone wants to reach out for the PowerPoint or recording later. Here we go.
Thanks, Whitney. Well, thanks everybody. Have a great afternoon.
Thank y'all for being here.